What's up, everybody? Trey Biddy with HawgSports.com, HAWGsports.com. We are a couple of weeks away from SEC Media Days. Arkansas goes on the 17th. We are about a month away from the start of fall camp and 60 days away from the start of the 2025 Razorback football season. We're going to discuss that, some roster building efforts with other sports, have Connor Goodson and Kevin Bohannon join me. All that and more on today's episode of Hog Sports Live. A lot of ways to watch and listen to the show. If you haven't given us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcast or any other platform, we'd certainly appreciate that. Give us a like or a thumbs up on Facebook, YouTube. Leave a comment. Subscribe to the channel. Hit the notifications bell. There's not a notifications bell, but there's some way to subscribe and set it where you are alerted anytime we upload new videos. We'd certainly appreciate that from all of you. So, SEC Media Days begins July 14th. It runs the 15th, 16th, and 17th. Arkansas drew the last day again, as we know. It'll be Sam Pittman, Mark Stoops at Kentucky, Eli Drinkwitz of Missouri, and Mike Elko at Texas A&M. This is the second year in a row that Arkansas has drawn the last day. Last year, in my opinion, kind of sucked. The last day sucks. So for Arkansas to get that 2 years in a row, and the reason it does is because there's a lot of hype and energy going the first day. Really, the second day is a big day. But, you've got all the media events and, the dinners and, go tour a stadium, those kinds of things. And then it drops off of the activities on the third day and certainly the last day. There's just nothing. The last day is probably a 16th, maybe less of the crowd. So just kind of stinks that they got that last day. I wanted to ask the question, though, and you can leave these in the comments. Who do you think Arkansas should take? They'll take 3 players to SEC Media Days. My best guess are Taylen Green, obviously. I mean, you can 100% write down Taylen Green is going to SEC Media Days, returning starting quarterback at Arkansas. The other guys are maybe a little bit more iffy. I think Cam Ball is a good candidate. When you talk about a guy that can speak, a guy that has been loyal, Cam Ball's quite entertaining. So I think he could be a good guy to bring. Xavier Sorey would be another guy who led Arkansas in tackles last year, another returning starter at linebacker. Not as good a speaker as Cam Ball is, not as boisterous, I guess, as Cam Ball. So maybe that would hinder him a little bit. And then Fernando Carmona would be the last guy that I would think as a possibility too. Fernando is also a really good speaker, communicates well, boisterous, big personality and everything. The only thing with Carmona is you think maybe they would ask him some questions about the incident in the Texas Tech game where he kind of stomped on that guy. So, but those would be the 4 that I would think would be the most likely candidates. Obviously, Taylen Green, number 1. And then, I think if you take an offensive lineman, then do you take a defensive lineman too? I would take Cam Ball, Fernando Carmona, and Taylen Green. Those would be the 3 that I would take if it were me. But also a nod to Xavier Sorey. So Arkansas fall camp, that would be next. So based on how basically it's going to be 29 days from the start of the season, from kickoff on August 30th. So I would expect July 30th. This is not official, but I would expect Arkansas to start camp on July 30th. You're allowed to hold 25 practices over 29 days leading up to that game. So fall camp is a grind. It is so brutal. For me, I know that August is probably my most difficult month of the year, along with like transfer portal activity and stuff also. But with fall camp, it's 6 days a week. It's every day except for Sunday. It is a lot. So 25 practices over 29 days, that's 4 days off. So 7 of the 25 practices must be conducted with helmets only, 7-day acclimatization period before pads are donned for the first times. You can have 18 contact practices. Among those 18, up to 9 full days of pads. No more than 2 consecutive days of full contact practices, no more than 75 minutes of full contact work, can be no more than 2 scrimmages, and a maximum of 105 players this year. Last year it was 120. So down to 105. The official Arkansas roster has 114 players on there. Jordan Anthony is no longer officially listed on there, obviously, who's going to focus on professional track. So there's a few changes got to be made. One of the changes I'd like to see Arkansas bring in a walk-on quarterback. Maybe Riker Acebo moves back to quarterback. He's been playing wide receiver because they only have 4 guys on scholarship. It's not that they need 4 guys in a game, but you need guys to get through practice. What if somebody gets banged up? You got to have somebody run the scout team. You got to have players throwing the ball to wide receivers, which they have a surplus of wide receivers on this roster. I came out with my recent projected depth chart for 2025. You can go to HawgSports.com and read that in its entirety. There's some adjustments. The last time I came out with one was, I think we were 8 days into practice. So a few adjustments here and there. Obviously, some players removed. 8 players removed from the roster since that time. 9 players added to the roster in the April portal window also. Obviously, Taylon Green, not going to go too much into some spots. Braylon Russell, Mike Washington, could be a little bit of a battle there. I think it's a nice 1-2 punch with those 2 guys, and then who picks up the rest of it. You want to have 3 guys ready to go. We know A.J. Green's capable of running for 400-plus yards in the SEC from his time at Arkansas before. Outside receiver, I've got Omega Blake and Monte Harrison at 1-2 on one side, and then the other one I've got Ismail Cisse and Jalen Brown. Jalen Brown might be a wild card type of guy. He started a couple games for Florida State last year, and then apparently had a really, really good spring, according to all the reports out of Florida State, and then obviously had the third-degree felony possession charge and was removed from the team. So I don't even know where that's going right now. But Jalen Brown, he started his career at LSU, was a top 100 type prospect, then transferred to Florida State, and now is at Arkansas. So maybe he's a guy that could be a weapon for him. Inside receiver, Raylan Sharp, Cam Shanks, those 2. The preseason All-American Cam Shanks, by the way, as a punt returner. So, those are and you've also got Gene out of Florida. Well, Pitt. He went to Florida and then transferred to Pitt and then transferred to Arkansas. So Andy Gene would be another guy, another former 4-star prospect. So a lot of wide receivers on this roster. Where does C.J. Brown fit in? Where does Courtney Crutchfield fit in? Among others. Where does Monte Harrison fit in? So some stuff to watch at wide receiver. Tight ends, Rohan Jones. I'm not blown away with this tight end room just yet. We'll see how Jaden Platt comes along. He did have a little bit of an injury in the spring, but Rohan Jones, I think, can be a good player for them at tight end. Poshka, more of an extra tackle type of guy. Offensive line, Corey Robinson, Fernando Carmona. This is left to right. Caden Kittler at center, and Marion Harris. Now, the right guard spot could be a lot of different guys. You could have a Marion Harris. You could have Keyshawn Blackstock. You could have Kobe Branham. Some of that could depend on what happens at right tackle, where I have Shaq McCroy. I think Shaq McCroy ends up the starter at right tackle. He did not come out of the spring as the starting right tackle. That's just a projection on my part. So if that happens, then you move, in my opinion, a Marion Harris inside, or Marion Harris is the top guy at every spot, battling with Keyshawn Blackstock. Kobe Branham, who had the pectoral injury, he should be coming back later this month, hopefully. And he's a guy that could also start at right guard for him. He's a guy that they're really high on. Defensive line is my least loved position group right now. I do love Cam Ball. I think Quincy Rhodes. I think Quincy Rhodes has a lot of potential. 6'6", 276, got the prototype size. I wonder about this defensive end group after Quincy Rhodes. Like, what if Quincy Rhodes got banged up or something? It's Charlie Collins. What kind of 8-week summer training cycle has he had? He needs to have a great one. Justice Boone, I didn't look at Justice Boone and go, that guy's definitely a starter. I think he can help him, but, I don't know. And then, Phillip Lee. How good is Phillip Lee? Is he a good addition from Troy? Obviously, we didn't see him since he was an April portal addition. Cam Ball on the inside. I think Danny Saili might be the most improved guy on the Razorback defense. Ian Gerard. You got 3 there. I don't know a whole lot about David Oakey because he was injured so much in the spring. He is a little bit undersized. Listed at 6'2", 312. I don't know if he's quite 6'2". He was very productive at Abilene Christian. Frank Mulipola. I was looking at that last name and I said fake. Frank Mulipola, 6'4", 275, redshirt senior, out of Texas Permian Basin, a Division II school. Is he an inside guy? Is he outside? Is he both? How does that work out? Is Caleb Bell ready? So I just got a lot of question marks on the defensive line. I like the linebacker core, particularly the starter Stephen Dix and Xavier Sori, and then Bradley Shaw as that third guy. We'll see on Wyatt Simmons. We'll see on Andrew Harris, the transfer from UCF, a guy that Arkansas recruited previously, a former four-star recruit, Trent Whalen, who was at Southern Utah, and then where was he at after that? He transferred somewhere, but he had 46 tackles at Southern Utah, so a guy that had some production. But they needed to add a couple of veteran linebackers, in my opinion, just in case. Safety, I think, gets interesting because the addition of Julian Neal, does he fit at cornerback or is he a nickel? I just penciled him in as a nickel. So I think maybe Julian Neal goes nickel, and if that happens, then I think you move Larry Worth to boundary safety, and then I think you move Miguel Mitchell from boundary safety to field safety. You've also got Caleb Wooden. You've got Quintavious Scandrett, some guys that have played a lot of football. They brought in Shakir Smalls from Maine. I don't know anything about him hardly. So I think they did a good job in terms of getting a lot of guys that can compete that have a lot of football playing experience. How good are they still remains to be seen. I do think that they will be a little better than they were last year in the secondary. I think that they have a chance to be better. Selman Bridges, they're really pushing him at one of those cornerback spots. And then the other one, Kenai Walker was banged up in the spring. Jordan Young did not practice at all in the spring. And again, does Julian Neal, does the transfer from Stanford/Fresno State, does he make an impact? He's Arkansas's highest rated transfer addition. So I wonder about that. We saw Jaheim Singletary a lot in the starting lineup in the spring. I think it's probably going to end up being Young, Walker. I like Keyshawn Davila a lot. I think he has a chance. Don't be surprised. Scott Starzik and Blake Ford battling it out at field goal kicker. Obviously, you'd like the guy on scholarship to win that job, and that's Starzik. Devin Bale, solid kickoff man and punter. Ashton No is returning at long snapper, and you got Rodney Hill, Cam Shank as your return men. Rodney probably the top kickoff return man. Shank's probably the top punt return, definitely the top punt return man. So that's where I've got things outlined. You can look at the full depth chart to go, 4 or 5 deep at some spots. Scholarship distribution, I've got Arkansas at 85 scholarships right now. I have been told through the grapevine that there is another player that could retire from football who hasn't graduated yet but is going to graduate. So we'll see how that shakes out. Bet Saracen's got a lot of interesting bets. You can bet on like 3+ regular season wins for Arkansas, which is minus 1,500, all the way up to 10+ regular season wins, which is plus 4,000. So I assume that means, maybe you guys can help me. Like, does that mean that is 3+ means Arkansas has to win 3 or more, or is it more than 3? Because I was talking with Randy Rainwater about it, and he had a different opinion. I was thinking 3 or more. You can also go exactly 5 wins, exactly 6 wins, which exactly 5 wins is plus 375. Exactly 9 wins or more is plus 1,300. You can even bet if Arkansas will make the college football playoff, which is plus 2,250. Those are the kinds of things going on right now. Obviously, we don't have any sports that are participating actively right now. Taylon Green, by the way, is at the Manning Passing Academy. He's a counselor there. There are a few interviews that have popped up from him there. So that's that. All right. Let's go to Kevin Bohannon. Kevin, you ready? Give me a thumbs up if you're ready, man. All right, Kevin Bohannon is ready. Kevin, how's it going, man?
Hey, you're doing good. You got that nice Florida glow.
Yeah.
Yeah, just like I did a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, it was nice. You don't really recognize sometimes how much you need a vacation until you actually take that vacation, but it was nice to get away for a little bit. And I always say the good sign of a vacation is at the end of it, last day or two, you're like, I'm ready to get back home. And that's
right. Yeah. That's exactly right.
So, Kevin, there's been obviously a lot of turnover with Arkansas baseball. Can you just kind of catch us up a little bit? who's gone either through the transfer portal, and let's keep it to notable players, guys that are gone from the transfer portal and guys that won't be back because of expired eligibility or Major League Baseball or baseball.
Absolutely. So Saturday, I put out our article. It's the transfer tracker and how the coaching staff is managing the roster turnover. We know last year that the College World Series run was made during the summer after the 2024 season, and nothing's changed now. A lot of the early 8 for Omaha picks does not have Arkansas in those one of 8 teams. Last year they did. So the coaching staff does have some work to do in the recruiting aspect of it, especially with the transfer portal. Last weekend was the first big weekend that they've had more than just a few visitors, and they picked up 2 commitments, which we'll get to in just a sec. Just starting real quick, you can go to HawgSports.com, look at the transfer tracker. Players out of eligibility: Will McIntyre, Dylan Carter, Rocco Pepe, Logan Maxwell, Kendall Diggs, and Carson Boyles. All 6 of those guys played a part, whether it be 1 year like Boyles or 3 years or 4 years like Diggs, McIntyre, and Carter. So those guys will be missed. A few of those guys will have the opportunity to get drafted. I think Dylan Carter will get drafted, Logan Maxwell due to his hit tool, and then maybe even Rocco Pepe based on what he did at Fresno State. He never did anything at Arkansas. Didn't live up to expectations, but he's got enough film out there that pro teams may take a chance on him as an undrafted free agent. Okay, most likely to sign a professional contract. Now, there's 8 of these guys. And if you think back to 2018 when this run really started, that team had 11 guys get drafted the year after the Razorbacks finished College World Series runner-up. So these are the 8 that I give better than a 50% chance. This could be the first time that Dave Van Horn or the University of Arkansas has had 4 players selected in the top 3 rounds of the MLB draft next month, which will be July 13th and 14th. That's a Sunday and Monday. Top 10 rounds on Monday or Sunday. And then the 11 through 20 will take place on Monday. So most likely turning pro. Now, these are in no particular order. Vahiva Loy, likely first-round draft pick. Gage Wood could be a first-round draft pick. We saw his draft stock just skyrocket, especially with the no-hitter against Murray State. So that would give the Razorbacks 2 first-round draft picks for the first time in school history. Charles Davalon is a draft-eligible sophomore. He's gone, guys. Sorry about that, but he did enough this year that he's going to get picked in the top 3 rounds. He'll sign for $1.5 million or more. And then Zach Root, obviously the Friday night guy for the Razorbacks, he's going to go pro. Landon Beitelcheese, and then Christian Fouch. Those are the top 6 right there that I feel are most likely 95% gone. The other 2, Brent Iredale and Justin Thomas Jr. Now, Iredale, I think, falls into the Brady Slavens category. Brady should have left after his second year at Arkansas. He went to Wichita State, Johnson County Community College, then got to Arkansas, hit a lot of home runs, and then really never got better. I think Iredale he did enough this year. Hit 14 home runs, even though all of those were at Baum-Walker, and 57 RBIs. I don't think he's going to have a better year, Trey. I don't see how. I mean, he could come back and hit 20 and 70, but, he loses his draft leverage at that point. And so if it's a money issue, take advantage of it. Iredale was named an academic All-American, so congratulations to the Aussie. And then Justin Thomas Jr. A lot of people think Thomas will be back. I'm not one of those. That guy has athleticism for days. Scouts love that about him. He had more hits than any hitter at the College World Series. That made him a little bit of money. So I think he'll get drafted high enough to where he bounces out. Now, should I stay or should I go? These are the 4 guys that they got a decision to make. Parker Coyle and Ben Bybee are draft-eligible juniors. They're in the Fouch and Gage Wood graduating class. And then Aiden Jimenez could come back and challenge for a starter spot. He's a redshirt sophomore just like Reese Robinette. Now, Robinette, I haven't found that he's playing ball anywhere this summer. If I were him, I would get as many at-bats as possible because this time last year, he was on the verge of getting cut, but he had a good season, a good summer at the New England Collegiate League and came back and was one of 5 Razorbacks. And if it weren't for injuries, I don't think he would still be on the roster right now. So Reese needs to get some at-bats. He could come back and challenge for that first baseman spot. Aiden Jimenez, like I said, could come back and challenge for a starting spot if that's what he wants to do. He's just really up to him at that point. I've talked to some of his family members. He's doing some rehab stuff right now and may pitch later this summer. The only notable roster guys that are out the door is Gabe Frazier and Zane Becker. Zane Becker signed with Texas A&M. He's from Texas, so he's going down there. Gabe Frazier signed. I never got the number, but it was likely the highest NIL agreement for the 2024 class last year. He wanted to play ball in college, and they got him some money. Well, now he's out the door. So those are the ones that are headed out. Coming in, we're up to 5 now. That's the good one. Okay, so Ethan McIlvain, the junior lefty from Vanderbilt, fastball up to 97. I think he's a really high ceiling guy with draft potential in the top 3 rounds next year. Super senior Jackson Wells from Little Rock Trojans. He's coming home. The Rogers native led the Mounties to their 2021 state title. Love Jackson Wells. He was actually the first NIL deal at Little Rock. Thompson Electric did the NIL deal for him after he won the ERA title in 2023. This past weekend, Jackson Kircher from Oklahoma committed. He's a Little Rock Christian alum. He was a high school All-American, fastball up to 99. He pitched in the summer with Carson Wiggins. And those two on the mound, they were a really good 1-2 punch for their showcase squad. And then just today, Zach Stewart from Missouri State. He was one of the top ones on my board that Arkansas needed to go after. 3 straight years of double-digit home runs. He hit 11 this year. Last year, he hit 21. I love his bat. He's 6'2", 225, and can run. So I'm really looking forward. Really good left-handed bat that will play well at Ball and Walker Stadium.
So, Kevin, how would you grade things right now on Arkansas's portal efforts? Are they getting guys that they want? Have they missed on some guys? Just your thoughts overall on how things have gone.
Yeah, they've missed on a couple. One was a lefty out of North Dakota State that ended up going to LSU. I know that there's been a couple of outfielders in. DeMartini that was in from Dayton. I know they looked at him. He is going to Duke. He's just following his coach from Dayton. They got hired for the Blue Devils, so he's going to the ACC. Trey, with the roster at 34, has to be done by December the 1st. They're at 39 or 40 right now, depending. And if Bybee, Coyle, and Jimenez and Robinette come back, they're at 43. So they're going to have to make some tough decisions. And I know some of the high school kids that come in, there's 19 on the list right now between high school and junior college. Some of those high school kids are going to fall off. So right now I give them a solid B-. They have filled some needs. Shortstop with Dylan Grego from Ball State. He's likely to replace Vahiva Lloyd, and they got 1 other 2 outfielders that they need. So they've done a really good job of getting quality, experienced guys that will be good draft guys. So they've got a couple of guys for the bullpen. I think they'll go after a polished guy that's a veteran starter out of the transfer portal. But it won't be a 8 to 9 guy portal class like it was last year. I think 4 to 5, maybe 6 is tops.
Kevin, anything to add? I think you covered everything.
Yeah, that was it. It's been a lot of that just stays on my mind and everything. The JUCO guys are interesting for me. Isaac Goddard and Sherman Johnson II. They're both from McLennan, which is a JUCO powerhouse. They're both playing in the MLB draft league. So they're draft guys, but they're just kind of, trying to get their profile a little bit higher. And then Denton Biller, who's from Johnson County Community College. He was 10-0 last year for JCCC up there. So good JUCO guys. I don't think they'll have the impact that Thomas Jr. and Iredale did, but it'll be interesting to see. Of course, we have the draft coming up July 13th and 14th. They're going to lose some guys out of the recruiting class for that. Expect Landon Schaefer from Fayetteville. I don't think he'll ever be a Razorback, unfortunately. And I don't think Peyton Lee will either. So those are 2 names right now that I know scouts are really after, and they've worked out for quite a few MLB clubs so far this summer.
Follow Kevin Bohannon at KBO Baseball Guru on X and read all of his content at HawgSports.com, HAWGsports.com. Got you covered for all the baseball roster building news, and of course when it's baseball season, does a great job for us.
We'll do some football stuff too, baby. Yeah.
All right, Kevin. Well, appreciate you, man.
Yep. Thanks, Trey. See you, bud.
All right, everybody. That's Kevin Bohannon again. Follow him at KBO Baseball Guru on X. Does a great job for us. All right, we're going to hop over to Connor Goodson now. We haven't had Connor on the last couple of shows. Obviously, we were off last week because I was on vacation. But Connor, you can follow him at Connor Goodson on X, and is our main basketball guy. Connor, how's it going, man?
What's up, Trey? Good to be on with you.
Yeah, good to have you on, Connor. It's been a little bit since you've been on the show, but there's been plenty of stuff happening with Razorback basketball, mainly for the future of the roster. Where do you want to start today?
Yeah, so I guess we can start with the 2026 class. I just posted kind of a recap and getting everything kind of in order for these next two recruiting evaluation periods coming up this month, which are really going to be the two pivotal evaluation periods for coaches in this cycle. Last year we saw that's when Arkansas really made pushes for guys like Darius Acuff, Malik Thomas. If you recall, last year Arkansas was really dead in the water with Malik Thomas at this point. He came off a visit from Connecticut and wasn't really expected to go anywhere else, and he canceled an Arkansas visit. And so then they end up making some ground through the latter stages of the summer with those evaluation periods and make up some pick up some momentum, and then that ends up in a commitment down the road. And obviously Malik Thomas is in Fayetteville gearing up for the season this year. So these next two evaluation periods are extremely important. So I put together an article last night, just kind of really just summarizing where everything is at with certain top prospects and some of the guys that I'm just hearing the most noise with Arkansas right now. Obviously this list could change as things, shift and with all these guys, everything's really fluid. None of them are really expected to make an announcement in the near future. So I think that the things are still very fluid, but over this next month, you're going to see guys start to really not only narrow down their list, but coaches are going to start really narrowing in on certain targets. And Arkansas with Calipari, he's saying he wants to add 4 guys. You've got JJ Andrews on board. You're really looking at three more spots for this 2026 class, and then kind of go from there.
So when I'm looking at the 2026 recruiting big board, it feels like everybody in the top 15 or so has been offered by Arkansas.
Yeah.
Do you see any of these guys leaning any certain direction right now? Obviously Andrews is on board, but do you see anybody,
the two guys that I really think that not only Arkansas is showing a lot of interest in and that I believe they're really pushing for, but also guys that are kind of reciprocating that interest with Arkansas are Jordan Smith, the number 2 overall player, and then Christian Collins, the number 4 overall player. And Collins has had kind of a little bit of a rough summer in EYBL play, not really being super consistent, but he has one of the biggest upsides, I think, in the entire class. He's a 6'8", 200-pound forward, very versatile guy. He can occasionally get out there and extend his range a little bit, but he's also a menace on the boards, really good defender at the other end, just high-level athlete. He's been really mentioned with Arkansas pretty much from jump, and Arkansas, I think, is really making a push for him. And they like what they see. Calipari loves those big, versatile guards who have a little bit of touch, who can really stretch the floor. So he's a guy that I'm really looking at. Jordan Smith, also a high-level guard, really do it all. He's like a bowling ball, I feel like, sometimes watching his tape, where he can just get in the lane and score at will sometimes over guys. A little undersized, but he makes up for it with that strength. He's another guy that I think Arkansas is really honing in on. And could be making a push for. He was a standout during the NBA Players Association Top 100 camp recently. So these are the two guys that I think right now Arkansas, I feel like that those are not leans, but I think that Arkansas is really making a concerted effort for those two guys. But as you know, like, things can change. This Arafan Diane, I probably butchered that name, but he's one of the newest guys really on this list. He kind of came out of nowhere, received an offer last month from Arkansas, and he shot up. He was originally like 95th in the 247 Sports rankings before before the this most recent update where he jumped all the way up to the top 15. And so he's getting really good looks from Florida, Louisville, Creighton, Arizona State, West Virginia, and Arkansas's in the mix. They extended him an offer. They really like him. So these kind of guys that kind of come out of nowhere that you don't really expect, they can really shake things up. And Arkansas's interest could obviously, fluctuate and mold towards different guys as they, rise or fall in the rankings going forward.
Connor, anything else to add on basketball? I know we're in a weird season, and you pretty much covered some of the future recruiting efforts for them. We know what the roster looks like, obviously, for 2025-26 season. Anything else you need to add on that front?
I think just right now, so I've got a lot of people that keep saying and they keep believing that the roster, there's one more roster spot available. I've reported that it looks like that Aiden Kelly is going to be back, but there was a lot of speculation whether he was going to be back as a player. Maybe he had joined as a manager or something. Look, I've been told from 2 staff members in the building that Arkansas's roster is complete. They're not really looking to add anyone else, barring something crazy with eligibility issues or something like that. So right now, it looks like this is the finalized roster. Your 15 are set with the additions of Paulo Semedo and Elmer Zafich. That looks like your finalized roster there. And unless I'm being told something wrong, or unless something's completely changed since this weekend when I was last told that no, this is the finalized roster. It seems like this is the 15 that Arkansas is going to have, and you got your 8 to 9 with a 10th guy possibly. Like you hear Calipari say it. Yesterday he was on the Penny Hardaway podcast saying, I want my 9 guys for sure, and then maybe a 10th guy who knows he's the 10th guy. And it looks like that they're doing that again this year with guys. I think the 10 through 15 can actually be able to contribute if needed. If there's an issue last year where you get down to 6 or 7 only healthy guys, I think that 10 through 15 could probably help you a little bit more than they did last year. But I think Calipari is still going to ride with those 8 to 9 guys, and all those other dudes are just going to have to really hope that there's some way that they can crack into the rotation.
I think Remy Cofield's biggest impact, the new Arkansas general manager, is going to be kind of taking things off of Sam Pittman's plate in terms of football, in terms of being the bad guy, like having conversations with players where like, well, we just don't think you're worth this much, or, we don't think we can get you this. I think that's a bad position to put a coach in. I think it's can damage a relationship. I was talking to DJ Williams yesterday. He said, the only conversations he ever had when it came to a GM was like getting a plane ticket out of there. So you never have like great conversations. Cofield probably going to be a villain to some players, maybe a hero to others who get what they want. But I am curious from a basketball standpoint, since we're dealing with such a smaller roster and Calipari has always had his finger on so many things, what kind of impact and what kind of role do you think Remy Cofield will have with Razorback basketball?
Yeah, so I thought that was interesting, and I kind of was hoping that he maybe dove in a little bit more than he did on that, and where he kind of sees more, where he can get more involved in. And like you said, it seems like mostly he's going to be taking stuff off of Sam Pittman's plate. And you mentioned coaches not wanting to be the bad guy. I feel like Calipari, he kind of welcomes those conversations. He doesn't care. He seems like a guy who's going to be straight up with certain players and be like, hey, I can't, if you're here for this much money, I can't do it for you. I mean, if you want to get to the league, I can get you to the league, but like, I'm not going to, he always says, I'm not going to trip over pennies, dimes, and nickels when you're trying to get to $1 million contract in the NBA. So I think that he kind of not welcomes those conversations, but he's not afraid to be that bad guy in these negotiations and stuff. So I don't know if Remy, he's being a front office executive in the NBA. There's just a wealth of knowledge being around guys like Danny Ainge and Brad Stevens that he could bring to a basketball program. Calipari also has he's got 30 plus years of experience in those conversations. And I feel like that maybe from a Calipari standpoint, he's like, hey, we're good doing this my way the last couple of years. Maybe where Remy kind of fits in is kind of just more like hands off, to where he's like, hey, if y'all need me to do something, I'm in. But I feel like Calipari maybe has that handled a little bit, and then Cofield's maybe just more of a conduit to kind of transition their approach the last couple of years into this new rev share model, and kind of maybe just being more of a like a rules analyst almost, to be like, hey, you can say this, you can do this, you can give this guy this, more so than actually just taking stuff off of Calipari's plate, because it feels like Calipari and staff are kind of well equipped to handle that, and they've shown a good ability to do that these last 2 cycles.
Mm-hmm. All right, Connor, I'm going to get you out with this, but what is your level of anticipation and excitement? We're a week away, I guess, from the early release of the EA Sports College Football 26. What are you most looking forward to with the change, the upcoming changes that we've been allowed to know so far?
I always felt that this first game was just like a bare bones kind of foundation for what the future of the franchise would be. So I'm really excited just to see more depth in Dynasty and make it feel like you're more immersed in it. I know with our online Dynasty, we were pretty immersed, and like there's at times where you really feel like you were, in these legit recruiting battles, and my wife would certainly agree with, the mood swings and the living and dying on every game. It did feel like you were submersed in that respect, but I'm really excited to see what they do from that standpoint. And I'm excited to see the evolution of our online Dynasty, and see I came up short I won the conference championship in the final year, so I have that feather in my cap, but never won a natty. So maybe these new changes and the new Dynasty experience, maybe that bodes well for me, and it fits my play style and coaching style a little bit more than it did last year, so I can maybe get a natty or 2.
Yeah, well, you had a lot of good seasons. It's tough when you get to the playoffs. My last 2 games, the semifinal win, I won on a 2-point conversion and won the title on a 2-point conversion. So easily could have gone either way, but I'm looking forward to it. I think, you just, like you said, last year, very bare bones. There wasn't even an opportunity for me to have a bald coach. Like when I created Coach Trey Biddy for Arkansas, I had to have hair.
That's wild.
Yeah. I don't like that. I like this look.
Would that be the 90s version of Trey Biddy, or is
there was Trey Biddy had hair at the turn of the century? Thank you.
Okay.
All right, Connor. Well, appreciate you coming on, and look forward to more of your coverage at HawgSports.
All right, sounds good. Thanks for having me on.
All right, everybody. Connor Goodson, again, follow him on X and read all of his content at HawgSports. A lot of great basketball insight, and does a little bit of everything else with football. Obviously, he's a junkie in that regard too. All right, let's see if we got any questions. I don't think I had anything specific for Connor. There's a couple other things I want to go over too, just on the football recruiting front, but I wanted to see if we had any questions from our members on the Razor's Edge forum. Did the Remy Cofield, this is from Seattle Seahawk, did the Remy Cofield pressure give you more or less confidence on where Razorback athletics are headed in this new era? To me, it's more like the thing he said about, it's not so much Arkansas, it's everything around Arkansas, like balancing out, everything with revenue sharing. There has been some talk about, like, people asking about, what's going where in terms of, percentages and stuff. You've got $2.5 million that are going to go to scholarships across sports to help that, because you have unlimited scholarships. You have roster limits, but you have unlimited scholarships. So there's going to be more scholarships, obviously, allotted for athletes, which is a good thing. And then, you have $18.5 million left. What I've been told since very early in this whole thing, before the House settlement was settled, was 75% to football. So after that 2.5 gets lopped off, you're looking at about 14 million or so for football. Basketball, anywhere from 10 to 15, say 15. And then you're looking at 5% probably for baseball and 5% for women's sports. That's just kind of what I've told. So $1 million and $1 million. That does not include, and again, it's also important to note that the revenue sharing dollars are not subject to state income tax. Other states don't have state income tax, obviously. Most of them do, but others don't. Arkansas is one of them that does. But when it comes to this, there's no taxes on that money. So, you make $100,000, that's an extra $4,000 in your pocket that doesn't have to go to state income tax. So that's a little bit of a boost there. But yeah, I mean, again, you still have NIL dollars. I know NIL deals that are still in the works and happening, and they're still obviously wanting donations for the collective. But it is going to be more heavily regulated than has been in the past. So, for example, like if Ohio State had a $20 million football roster last year, all of that money came from NIL. It would be extremely difficult, I think, to justify $20 million given out to these athletes, especially high school recruits, which is something that I think is a good thing. I don't think that guys that haven't done anything in their careers should warrant, these huge salaries from NIL exclusively, because to me, you have to show that somebody has that value, and to have that value, you have to go out and perform and make big plays. And then if you do that, then okay, you could warrant that, this law firm is justified in giving this guy this much money to, speak on behalf of the law firm, or, whatever it is, soda company, whatever. And that's what NIL is supposed to be, really. NIL is supposed to be, we want to hire this person because we think he can help our charity, or we think he can help us move AirPods or something, gum, whatever. So that to me is what NIL is supposed to be. Not, we want this guy to come to and play football at our school, and we'll figure out a way to work it out to where they represent a product. Like that's not really what NIL is. So hopefully there is a more balanced playing field in that regard. Hopefully they do look at some of these NIL deals and say, this isn't legit. You got $1 million and you sent out a couple of tweets. So hopefully that's how things work out. But that's what I've heard. About 75%, really since the very start of all of this, is going to go towards football, and it should, because that's the most scholarships. That's basically 74% of the revenue the University of Arkansas gets is from football. I do wish there was more. I wish they didn't have to make so many cuts. I've heard like as many as maybe 18 cuts in the athletic department. I don't know if it's that many. I don't have that confirmed. I've heard, obviously there was talk about Kevin Trainor. Kevin Trainor had been there 30 years. There's people in, student athlete experience, I know, that have been let go. I just wish that there was a better way to bring money in versus, raising basketball ticket prices and firing people. But that's where we are. You got to carve out $20.5 million. And that's one reason we've seen across college football also that, you don't see as many firings as you have in the past, because people don't want to spend all their money firing coaches and buying out other coaching contracts to get coaches here. So let's see what else we got. I think it's a new era. Oh, yeah. And we discussed the NIL stuff just now. That was from Joyous 95. NEA Hogs 12. Interested in the opinion of Cofield. We talked about that a little bit. Biggest storylines going into fall camp. Okay. We got a few questions here from NEA Hog 12. So obviously I'd wanted to speak to Cofield. I asked, when would I get that opportunity? Of course, he's made available when I'm on vacation, but you're always going to miss something when you're on vacation in this line of work. You just are. I don't know that he said anything earth-shattering. I didn't expect him to say anything earth-shattering. Usually if I get more of a one-on-one, I can, get into a more of a conversation type of deal instead of just firing questions, but that's the way that press conferences are these days. And I don't think that he said anything that I haven't said already, basically. But I do think that the role falls on him to have those discussions with players, saying, this is what you're worth. This is what we can pay. If you think you can get it elsewhere, then great, but we don't think that that's, what your value is. Having that conversation with Remy Cofield versus having it with Sam Pittman, to me, takes a lot off Sam Pittman's plate in terms of his relationship with players, dealing with agents all the time, and it lets him focus on football. And all coaches. I mean, GMs do that in the NFL, and that's, kind of, we're getting closer and closer to that kind of look with college football. So hopefully it does provide some balance, but at the same time, the blue bloods are the blue bloods in college football. So teams figure out ways to get around things. I think it's a step in the right direction. I don't think it should be the final step. I think needs to be more to come. I think you got to look at this calendar a lot with college football. When is the best time to have a transfer portal? Probably not during the college football playoff. Probably not then. And probably not even in January, because you're just squeezing it in a very short window of, trying to get guys enrolled before classes start. The academic calendar is not good for the athletic calendar. It just doesn't jive up very well. I've made this point before. I think if you want to transfer, you enter the transfer portal in April, and, yeah, I mean, that's what I think. I think you enter the transfer portal in April, and that's it. You don't get to go through spring football. You don't get to enroll at semester. You don't get to have it all. Everybody wants to have it all. They think they're entitled to have everything. I think the way that they have changed things in the summer, you're able to do so much more coaching and work with the players. It doesn't completely take over spring football, but you are more ready to start fall camp than you were in the past. So that's my thoughts on it. Like, let's do this transfer portal in April, and guys that want to transfer, maybe that would deter some of them from doing it, but you don't get to get it all. You don't get everything you want. Trey, this is from Chad Razorback. Is Arkansas NIL woes due to lack of money or needing to overpay players to play for Pittman? It is due to lack of money relative to their peers. When Arkansas started that Drive for 5 deal that was not a success, that was based on like what Ole Miss had going on. Arkansas had less than, I think, 1,000 people, donating $50 or more. Ole Miss already had 5,000 giving, that much money. So yeah, I think it's overall lack of embracing it at the right time. Arkansas, but again, like Rebel Grove was started out by fans, Ole Miss fans, the Rebel Collective. So to me, like, Arkansas just did not capitalize at the right time. 2021 was the year to capitalize on NIL and get that thing rolling, and they didn't. And you can say that's Hunter Yurchek's fault, or you can say it's somebody else's fault, but it's somebody's fault that Arkansas was behind in that regard in terms of NIL. I mean, I've always said, like, the only thing that Ole Miss has over Arkansas, and this is not a shot at Ole Miss, I don't mean it as that, I'm just talking about Arkansas, is Lane Kiffin. That's it. That they don't have the same endowment. They don't have the same money as a state. Arkansas traditionally has had more success than Ole Miss, especially since 1960, and that's it. Ole Miss has better access to talent in their state, but they get rated. And they split the state between 2 schools, Mississippi State and Ole Miss. If Ole Miss can do it, then in my opinion, Arkansas can do it. But they embraced NIL early, and they got a hotshot coach in Lane Kiffin. Arkansas just feels like they're chasing a little bit. Lord Porter 95 says, Trey, how's the national perception that we have subpar NIL and that Sam is on the hot seat affecting the program and recruiting? The main way that this affects recruiting, and we can talk about in-state guys going elsewhere. I mean, I think Arkansas in a lot of cases is going like, look, we want you to come here, but not at that cost, not for that. And if you go back and look at some of the high-profile guys that come out of Arkansas, not many of those guys are going to the NFL. I went back and looked at it yesterday on Drive Time, and I mean, like, you'll name a Traylon Burks here and there, but there are so many guys that were ranked in that range. I mean, if you're a 4-star, you're deemed to have a pretty good shot at making an NFL roster one day. That's not happening with kids in Arkansas lately for some reason. So to me, Arkansas's approach has changed to where, and it has to with Sam Pittman, because Sam Pittman can't invest all his money in guys that aren't going to be able to help him for a couple more years, that are high school recruits, because he won't be here to coach them, and they'll be gone back in the transfer portal somewhere. Arkansas has to invest in players that are ready to play. And that's partly because Sam Pittman is on the hot seat. He's been on the hot seat, and he has to win right away. He can't afford to build up a program. So that's the big part of it. You've got to spend your money on guys that are ready to come in and play, on the 30 whatever transfer guys that you brought in. That's where the money needs to go. And what they've done in recruiting is they focused on offensive line. There are 5 offensive line commits in this class. That's the group of guys that you would like to bring in your program, develop in your program, have them develop that bond, that unity. I think Arkansas's offensive line has improved this year, but it's a pieced together unit right now. I think it'll be better than it was last year, which was also pieced together in a way, but they haven't had that luxury of bringing in and developing offensive linemen. Other spots, wide receiver, so on and so forth. I think you can get guys out of the transfer portal. They got Courtney Crutchfield after a year away. Didn't pay the big bucks for him out of high school. They got Shaq McCroy after a year, Kavian Browser after a year. So you can get some young guys who are redshirt freshmen or sophomores also out of the transfer portal. It's not all just seniors. So, yeah, I think it has impacted how they approach recruiting. The national perception, to me, I don't know if people have a strong perception of Arkansas nationally right now. They have been kind of irrelevant in a lot of ways. Hogwild97 says, Trey, who is your bet to be wide receiver number 1? Maybe Omega Blake. I mean, it depends. I could see a scenario where you have a different guy leading him in catches, maybe Raylan Sharp, a guy leading them in yardage, maybe Omega Blake, and even potentially a different guy leading them in touchdown catches. So it's difficult for me to say right now. They've also got Jalen Brown, who I think is an intriguing addition. I don't know if Monte Harrison is a guy that can be a 50-50 ball guy, a guy that can be a good big target in the end zone. I don't know yet. But if you're making me say it, I'll say Omega Blake. Hog Coop says, can each of you guys, well, we don't have the other guys, give your idea of what's needed for Arkansas to take the next step and compete nationally? How could we get to your desired goal for the football program? Well, NIL and things like that obviously matter. There was somebody that posted maybe a month ago, and it was breaking down Arkansas's games the last several years if they ended in the third quarter, like how many more games they would have won versus the fourth quarter. So we can talk about personnel, and I think that there is going to be better balance in terms of personnel with the revenue sharing model coming in. And we'll, again, see how much this actually impacts the NIL side of things because that is all under more scrutiny now. It's still going to exist. What level? So that remains to be seen. And that's, looking ahead to 2026. 2025 still Wild West as far as that goes in football. But what's needed for Arkansas to take the next step and compete nationally is making the right decisions, not making colossal errors. Arkansas fumbled the ball way too much, turned the ball over way too much last year, made too many mistakes. It seems like Pittman has gotten better at this, but for a while, it seems like if it came down to a decision at midfield whether to punt or go for it, or inside whether to kick a field goal or go for it, it seemed like they always made the wrong decision. And that's one reason they lost so many one-score games consecutively is because of execution and decision-making, turning the ball over. I mean, that kind of stuff can't happen. Like, look at some of the big moments last year. You had the LSU game. That's caused by penetration in the backfield, the Witt guy making a big play, batting the ball in the air and intercepting it like at the 1 yard line. The Texas A&M game, a couple key, huge plays where they got into the backfield. Look at the Texas game. Ball hits Tyrone Broden right in the hands, pops up in the air, intercepted by Texas early in the game. Late in the game, you're a drive that you got to have. For some reason, you put C.J. Brown in a really difficult situation, and in a play that was designed for him, which is also a bit of a head scratcher, and he catches the ball and holds it like this. It gets popped out and you fumble. Mistakes like that. The Missouri game last year, I knew, and everyone else did, in a game in those conditions, it's going to come down to who doesn't make mistakes. And Arkansas made mistakes and Missouri did not. That's what it came down to. So to me, it's like taking care of the football, not making a bunch of stupid penalties, having better discipline as a team. That's what it comes down to me. Yeah, and get better players, of course, and hopefully NIL balances that playing field. But once that playing field is more balanced, we've also got to get to a point where we're not making mistakes like that, boneheaded decisions in critical situations. I hope that answered everybody's questions. See if we got any in the comments. Comments are so hard to get to. Yeah. Omega, so Brady, I think Omega Blake missed a big opportunity to wear number 9, or what is it? Omega 3, number 3. He's wearing number 9. Could have wore 6, I guess, but like Omega 3, that would have been a good NIL opportunity for like a vitamin company. Danny's not coming on today. Danny's been holding down the fort while I'm gone, so he is not. But just to I guess recap a couple of things with recruiting right now, football recruiting. Ben Mubenga has committed to Arkansas. Eric Mateos, I think, has done a really good job. I mean, from what he inherited to what he has built with bringing players from the transfer portal, the 5 players that he brought in on the offensive line. Bubba Craig also, I think, who has a nice future. They have 5 players committed right now out of the high school ranks. I think he's done a really, really solid job in terms of 1 year change. And I've said this before, but like just looking at the second team offensive line heading into this year versus what it was last year, I think is pretty telling and dramatic. Love kids out of Georgia. This guy's out of Buford, Georgia, 6'5", 290 pounds. Ben Mubenga. Arkansas, Florida State. He took official visits to Georgia Tech, NC State, Florida State, and Arkansas. And Arkansas ended up getting him, had other offers as well. Arkansas also flipped Victor Lincoln from Oklahoma State to Arkansas in the secondary. So Lincoln, he visited. I think visits are important because, like, you bring a guy in for a visit, you only have so many. To me, that's like telling that you want the guy. So to me, that Florida State visit is telling with Mubenga. Victor Lincoln visited Oklahoma State, Baylor, and Arkansas. Had other offers also, but those were his visits and was obviously committed to Oklahoma State at one point. Inside the state, again, this is a really strong class as far as a recruiting standpoint. 2 years ago, Arkansas had, I think, 5 4-star recruits. They have 5 this year. Right now, I've never seen it like this these last few years. But under Pittman, it's just different. It's not that they're not putting an emphasis on in-state guys. It's just, I think, in my opinion, they're not willing to pay what some of these price tags are. That's what I would guess. I don't know that 100%. I feel pretty good about it. I probably get some phone calls from a parent or two saying that. But Danny Beal going to Oklahoma State, number 1 ranked prospect in the class, Cherry Valley, Arkansas, Cross County. Evan Goodwin out of Bauxite going to SMU, number 2 ranked prospect in the class. Terry Hodges is undecided, the running back out of Mark Tree. Ja'Cory Smith going to Oklahoma, Bryant linebacker. And then Anthony Kennedy Jr. going to Miami, Little Rock Central. So 4 of the top 5 players inside the state of Arkansas are headed out of Arkansas. And one of them is undecided right now. The top prospect in Arkansas is DeQuane Prevost out of Bentonville. The top prospect going to Arkansas, Dwayne Prevost out of Bentonville, just shy of 4-star status, 5'10", 160, wide receiver. Pretty wild, huh? It's definitely different than we're used to seeing. You used to never see, too, like You go way down this list. Number 14, Tucker Young, committed to Arkansas. 18, Blair Irvin III, going to Arkansas out of Bentonville. You used to never see guys that were, down in the teens committing to Arkansas. It's always, the top few guys at the top of the class. Arkansas is currently ranked 20 nationally. They're not going to finish 20. Other schools are going to move up. And with this class, Arkansas is definitely going to end up outside the top 25 recruiting class. Unless, who knows where we go with the 85 scholarship and the 105-man scholarships. Like right now, the limit is 105. The total limit is at 105. The scholarship limit is 85 for SEC schools. Other conferences do it differently, but that's where it is in the SEC right now. Now, if we move to a situation where it goes to 105, I would think that most of those guys that you want to add to fill that up are probably, obviously some come from the transfer portal, but you also want to bring in a number of high school players and hope you hit on some, I think. So other Danny West articles, he's got a recent offer rundown with 27 and 28 prospects, probably a couple dozen guys that he lists. You can read all of that at HawgSports.com. And I think I like when he does the state checks. So how's Arkansas's recent recruiting trends? I can remember when Brett Bielema was at Arkansas, they really lacked the emphasis that they should have had in the state of Texas. Just did not put a lot of effort in that state. For whatever reason, when there were opportunities to hire assistant coaches with ties to Texas, they chose to go out and hire a guy from Michigan or a guy from somewhere else. So never really had that emphasis. I think about 2014, they had Cole Headland, I think one other guy, who's a kicker. One year they had, just maybe a punter out of Texas. I mean, just did not have a big emphasis. But since Sam Pittman has been at Arkansas, and that, and when Chad Morris, I got to say that when Chad Morris came to Arkansas, their only real recruiting class really was 2019 because he was here such a short time. But they brought in 6 guys from the state of Texas because they obviously had Jeff Traylor, I think, was a big part of that. Jeff Traylor knows Texas high school football. Now the coach at UTSA, but you had that class, and then when Pittman came in, they brought in 3. That 2020 class, which was difficult. 2021, they brought in 5. They only had 1 in 2022. They brought in 2023. They brought in 5. They brought in 7 in 2025. They brought in 5 in 2026. Or so far, they have 5 in 2026. But to me, 5 to 7 out of the state of Texas is not a bad number, especially if you're de-emphasizing Arkansas, which apparently they have done. But you get some guys out of Texas, love the guys out of Georgia. I mean, it seems like Arkansas always hits on guys out of Georgia. They recruit Alabama, obviously Mississippi. So anyway, a few things here and there. All right, everybody. I think we pretty much covered most everything going on right now. I'm sure I missed some things. I had to spend yesterday. I didn't do the show yesterday because I wanted to play catch up, get my feet wet again, get back into the groove before I hopped on air with everything. But I want to thank everybody for joining us today. I appreciate all those who have subscribed, took advantage of that 50% off offer at HawgSports that ran through the month of June. We are 30% off or $1 for your first month at HawgSports.com. And throw us that 5-star review on Apple Podcast. Give us a like, thumbs up, whatever, on Facebook and YouTube. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so. Set it to where you're alerted anytime we upload new videos. We'd certainly appreciate that from you. Thanks to Connor Goodson. Thanks to Kevin Bohannon, and also Danny West with some of the info and the content that we use there. And appreciate all of you for your questions and for checking out Hog Sports Live. We'll be back with you guys again soon. It's been Trey Biddy. We'll catch you next time.